happen. We have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Month. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup.
And in the news this week, the President of the United States had the nerve to tweet about LGBT pride while assaulting LGBT rights at the same time, even defending his ban on trans troops with a lie.
I consider this the new definition of chutzpah. Details to come. Meanwhile, a bishop in Rhode Island tells Catholics not to attend pride marches.
A non-gay cop has won a lawsuit for anti-gay harassment.
And the third murder of an African-American trans woman in Dallas this year. And another trans detainee dies just out of ICE custody.
In New York, they're going to erect statues to early activists Marsha P. and Sylvia Rivera.
Finally, maybe. The president of the Philippines says that he was cured. I think he cured himself of being gay.
Well, we'll tell you how.
Yeah.
Italy elected its first transgender mayor.
And momentum is building for the Queer Liberation March, I'm now a walking billboard, on June 30th to mark the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion.
Tell us how the momentum is building, Ann.
It's amazing. Everywhere we go, we talk to people about the Queer Liberation March, and people say, I know about it, I'm coming, I've told my friends, I'm coming from out of town.
We're going to be able to handle all these people?
Yes, we are. We absolutely are.
What are we going to do? We're going to meet in the village at Stonewall Place at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and try to kick off by 9:30 and go up a little hook, and then we're going to go up 6th Avenue all the way to Central Park, just like the original Christopher Street Liberation Day marchers in 1970.
You hardly even need me here.
Well, it's all over your shirt.
Yes, it is. The police do not want to create some kind of gridlock with the Heritage of Pride march parade. So while they are coming down 5th and doing their little horseshoe pattern in front of the Stonewall and back up 7th, we are going to start earlier so that we can clear out of the way.
We're going to get to move and march. Now, this is very serious.
Yes,
because,
it is.
And the group sends out emails all the time. Why we march. And of course, if you watch this show, you know why we march, because there's horrible things still happening in the United States, in New York, all over the world that we need to march about.
Yes, and I had a new thought this week. It's not a new thought, but I sort of articulated it better to myself, because I was thinking about the original marches and all the marches we've done over the years, and the marches on Washington that we've done on 79 and 87 and 93 and whatever.
2000.
And what occurred to me, what I started thinking about is the way those marches have empowered us and empowered the community over the years. That the point of these marches is to bring people together to talk about these issues, but to meet each other, to have a sense of community, which has been totally destroyed by the Heritage of Pride parade and others like it.
They don't even have their rally connected to the march. A march always used to culminate in a rally.
Yeah.
You marched all this way, you were all together, and you heard a message together that you could act upon at the end.
Well, and even
if
it's...
there is going to be a rally this year in Times Square for the Heritage of Pride March.
Yeah, but that's a concert. That's not
really?
Yes, it's Melissa Etheridge and Madonna, I think.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Yeah, no, they're having a rally on Friday night in Christopher Park or whatever. And as the drag march is coming across town, that'll be an interesting collision.
Could be a riot.
Here's my point. The Heritage of Pride parade and many parades all over the country and all over the world, having become these corporate extravaganzas, no longer allow or invite individuals into the streets to march.
Right.
We're supposed to stand on the sidelines as spectators.
And the most thrilling march you'll ever have is the first time you decide to get off the sidelines and jump into the march?
I think every one of them is thrilling because they are community events, because they are individuals coming together in community to participate in something together. And what those marches did, and what the marches on Washington particularly did, was whether you listened to the rally message or not, what you knew was that there was a huge community out there who cared about these issues, cared about you, cared about the community, and people went home to their local communities and started a revolution.
I mean, I'm from New York, and, you know, we had a very vibrant movement in 1979, but to go to Washington and see all these people from Alaska and everywhere else, I cried just looking at it. And, of course, that makes you feel encouraged that what you're doing is catching on around the country.
It's empowering. And the corporate parades are not empowering. They are disempowering. So the importance of the Queer Liberation March and other more grassroots events. Look, I was in Maplewood, New Jersey this weekend at their little local pride parade. These are empowering events, and that's why they're so crucial, because that is how the movement is going to grow and thrive.
Well, we're going to talk about it. Oh, we could talk about it now, as long as we're talking about pride. There's that little girl in outside of Chicago who organized a march in the suburbs, and she's now going to be one of the grand marshals of the Chicago Pride March.
Well, I hope that's not a corporate extravaganza that is going to disempower her, but it is. I was trying to think about why I was so compelled to get involved in organizing this a year ago. And the answer is finally articulated to me, that it is an event that empowers us. Right. And that's why I think it's so important for people to show up, to have that experience, and to reinforce everyone else so that when we leave there, we go on to do the work that needs to be done with joy, with anger, all of it.
And you will meet people from all over the world, and if you come, you can even meet us in person.
I'll be at the back of the march, making sure that all the little strays are rounded up.
I haven't been given my assignment yet.
You can pick your own, because this is freedom.
Well, you know, for the first time, I've been to 45 of these in New York straight, so to speak. And this is one of the first ones I'm looking forward to in a long time.
So to get details about this, go to reclaimpridenyc.org. Reclaim Pride NYC. Can you see it on the back of my shirt?
Yes.
Reclaim Pride. I'm just a billboard. Reclaim Pride NYC. Some guy shouted at me in the street the other night as I was riding my bike along. He
said, queer? Queer Liberation March.
No, he actually yelled, Reclaim Pride. So that's how I know it's building. Great. Anyway, come join us on June 30th. We step off from Sheridan Square at 9:30. If that's too early for you, go to Bryant Park. We'll pick you up at 11.
We will. And there'll be accommodations for people with disabilities. Somebody asked about that.
Yes. Check it out online and just let us know. We have an accessibility committee.
And again, especially in the Trump era, it has been imperative that we be more militant in our marches, because we're losing the republic. I mean, to see Trump over there extolling democratic values, democratic values.
Lying about the fact that there were protesters.
But democratic values, this is the week that, they're denying having anything to do with putting in the citizenship question into the census to suppress the Latino vote, etc., and severe restrictions across the country. Look, the only way, we already have a bad system in America in terms of governance. It's not one person, one vote. But I mean, when they use it to just try to hold on to power through gerrymandering and all that, it's horrible.
And they're shameless about it now.
Yes,
shameless.
Absolutely shameless. And we'll see.
So speaking of shameless, your president and mine tweeted this last week that he was celebrating Pride Month. It was really
grotesque.
Yes, thank you. Grotesque.
Well, I mean, should we actually say what he said?
Yes, say what he said.
We celebrate LGBT Pride Month and recognize the outstanding contributions this is Trump. LGBT people have made to our great nation. Let us also stand in solidarity with the many LGBT people who live in countries that punish, imprison, or execute individuals on the basis of sexual orientation, starting with most of your dictator friends.
Yes.
And and you who are heartily discriminating against transgender people, not supporting the Equality Act, etc.
And all of us. Right. Getting rid of every protection that was enacted by Obama. And now they've gotten rid of, what's the latest? The State Department is creating a commission on unalienable rights that is all about empowering religious bigots to discriminate against us.
They want to redefine human rights, not as the way the UN does, but as based on natural law and natural rights. Where did you get that from? The Vatican? So they're doing this, and the head of it is going to be this right-wing Princeton professor, Robert George, who is setting it up. He's a co-founder of the National Organization for Marriage, which is an anti-LGBT group, and these are the kind of monsters. And look, this is what they are doing to us.
Well, they're very transparent about this. Even Taylor Swift is going after Trump for his declaration. I want her to come to the Queer Liberation March.
That'd be great.
Taylor, you're invited.
They're also cutting travel to Cuba, for God's sakes, and it's going to hurt the Cuban people. They think it's going to help them win Florida. I don't think so. And then this whole tariff thing, which is just going to, take money out of your pockets. And
they're canceling fetal tissue research contracts from elective abortions because it all has to be buried or cremated.
Right. And Trump's ambassador to China...
HIV research down the drain because they're canceling these contracts.
Trump's ambassador to China, Terry Branstad's going to have to come home one day this month to face a trial for using his power to pressure an official to quit because he was gay. He's going to have to testify at this trial. This was a gay guy who was on the Iowa Workmen's Compensation Board, and he was supposed to have a 6-year term, and he was pressured to get out by the governor.
But 3 cheers to LGBT employees in various government departments and agencies. They are going ahead on their own with pride celebrations at their departments. They're not letting Trump's example lead them. And the secretaries of these departments and agencies may not show up for these celebrations as they used to in previous administrations. But the employees are going to go ahead and do it.
So,
State Department, Defense Department, Justice, all these places.
Then Piers Morgan, of all people over there in England, pressed Trump in an interview about a bunch of issues. I thought he was actually pretty hard-hitting on some things, although I don't like him.
Even though he won The Apprentice?
Well, so they're old buddies.
They are.
So he pressed him on, why are you throwing trans people out of the military? He says, they take massive amounts of drugs, and nobody's allowed to take drugs in the military. And then he said, and their operations cost $250,000. But I'm proud of them. But you have to have a standard.
Oh my God.
It was just grotesque. It's grotesque. And then Joe Biden, of course, keynoted the HRC dinner in Columbus, Ohio. And, he called ours the civil rights movement of our time and that it's his #1 priority. But then I read he supports the Hyde Amendment, which forbids any federal funds for poor women to get abortions.
I'm very uncomfortable when people say we are the civil rights movement of the time or anyone's #1 priority.
No.
Have you seen how many black men are still being shot by cops?
Of course. Well, we don't want to
Ridiculous.
get into it, but we just want you to be for everybody.
I did like the Charles Blow column. He's the out bisexual columnist for the New York Times, black. And he wrote a column saying, is Lindsey Graham being blackmailed by Trump?
This has often been suggested.
It was cute.
Lindsey denies being one of us.
Yeah, well, what's he going to say this point? Do you expect him to come out? No. Well, ICE is still doing its best to abuse people of all sorts at the border. And we have another trans woman ended up dead after spending time in ICE custody. Joanna Medina.
Yes.
A refugee from El Salvador.
25 years old.
Yeah.
From HIV complications. And she's a nurse. And she said, I can't, she knows medicine, so she says, I can't take these things orally. I need injections. No, you can't have them. And she died. Yeah. She died. Unconscionable.
Now, the Trump administration is also doing everything it can to support right-wing religious bigots, and one of the things it did was give South Carolina a waiver from non-discrimination rules in their adoption and foster care agencies. So now a lesbian couple are suing the state of South Carolina and HHS with the help of Lambda Legal and the ACLU because they were denied the ability to apply for a foster care child from a religiously based agency in the state.
No, I guess it's in Philadelphia. The city has won the right to not give government money to groups that discriminate.
Yes.
And all this is still
But South Carolina is not going to, like Philadelphia, apply to, challenge the religious freedom of the adoption agency.
In fact, in Texas, the execrable Ken Paxton, the Attorney General there, is suing the city of San Antonio for denying a lease to Chick-fil-A at the airport, which is, he's very insecure. He said it violates their religious freedom to sell fried chicken. The FAA under Trump is also investigating San Antonio.
Your
for this.
Federal dollars at work.
All right. Should we go to
Well, you should go to Rhode Island, yes.
So Providence Bishop Tobin, his name is, he warned Catholics not to, quote, support or attend LGBTQ, he got most of that right, Pride Month, in quotation marks, events held in June, saying they promote a culture and encourage activities that are contrary to Catholic faith and morals. They are especially harmful to children. That's a hell of a thing for a Catholic bishop to be saying, given what's been going on in your church. So look, the governor, the mayor, they're all Catholics, and they're saying, we're not with him. And a Catholic pastor in the town there said, I beg you gays to stay. Well, you're not performing marriages for them, are you? But he begged them to stay. And they had a big demonstration and a big...
We have a picture of the demonstration.
They also had a banner of welcomes. And then finally the bishop said, I understand why people took offense, but I got a lot of support on Facebook for that.
There were a lot of people who wrote to him and said he was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You have always said that you like it when they are overtly sticking to their rules because that may bring them down faster.
Yes. There was one sign at the demonstration that said, Queens outrank bishops. And then the U.S. bishops expressed grave disappointment at the Equality Act being passed by the House.
Oh my God!
They called the definitions of sex and gender identity in the bill unsound. Oh, you know better. They said they would have to close their child care centers. They always say this, like we're a danger to children of some sort. And they praised Trump's assault on transgender rights at HHS, allowing denial of health care. Is this your God speaking? Because I think you're worshiping a false God.
Well, if only they were so quick to protect children when it was their priests who were abusing them.
Plenty of opportunity. No one was stopping you. When
was the last time you turned in a priest to the police department for abusing children?
Right.
Never.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's talk about a good guy, and that is Nat Worth at a high school in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Now,
Lutheran high school.
Lutheran, yes. We'll get off the Catholics and move to the Lutherans.
Okay.
Nat Worth was the valedictorian of his high school, the highest performing kid at the school.
There he is.
So he was supposed to give the graduation speech, as is what happens at high school graduations. But the school got a hold of a draft of his speech in which he talked about coming to terms with being gay.
He said, I have trekked through the depths of depression, found that God's love is endless, and embraced the fact that I'm gay. Absolutely no one should have to go through what I've gone through, similarly, to come to the conclusion that homosexuality is not a sin.
Unfortunately, too many people still do have to go through that track.
Well, the administrators denied it. Stopping him had nothing to do with his sexuality.
Oh, what did it have to do with?
We just couldn't trust him to stay on the script. That's what they said.
Well, if they didn't like the script, which they
he's thrilled now because everybody knows about him. And he says, I've become a role model, and I'm inspiring other people to come out. And that is right. It is terrific. It is a very brave thing to do.
But he had to sit there while the salutatorian gave the graduation speech, and that was a little tough for him, and I can imagine it was.
It is, but well, anyway.
Anyway, what? Congratulations, Nat.
Back to Pride. The largest indigenous pride in the United States is going to be run by the Navajo Nation June 28th and 29th at a place called Capitol Window Rock, Arizona. They call it detainee. How do you say this? D-I-N-E apostrophe? Detainee Pride. Their theme is, I am a sacred being, and they're pushing to repeal the tribal law against same-sex marriage.
Many tribes have already legalized same-sex marriage within their tribal laws. And, you know, tribes have some independence from U.S. law, so they do have to make their own decisions about this.
Yes.
Because even though they're forced onto barren lands, they have some autonomy, or should have. But my favorite Pride event, here's my nominee for Pride event of the year.
Yeah.
Newark Airport.
Oh.
At Newark Airport on June 20th at 10 a.m., United Airlines is sponsoring a drag brunch with a RuPaul drag race contestant, Kennedy Davenport, Terminal C at the Global Bazaar. They are raising funds for the Trevor Project, and you can go to a drag brunch at Newark Airport on June 20th.
Well,
by the way, the Trevor Project seems to be the beneficiary of 90% of the Pride events. Every press release I get says, and we're donating funds to the Trevor Project.
It's not controversial.
Exactly.
I hope that United will fly in the drag queens from Ohio, where 2 public libraries canceled LGBT events after public backlash in Delaware County and Newark County. They were
in Ohio.
In Ohio, drag performers, and one of them was going to be a drag makeup editorial, but some politician objected and they caved.
All right. Well, let us also congratulate Kenneth Hagel.
Yes.
Now, where is Kenneth? Oh, he's in New Jersey.
He's a cop in Seagirt, New Jersey.
This is the New Jersey portion of our program.
Yes.
Kenneth Hagel is a heterosexual man, but he was gay bashed by his police chief.
The chief didn't like him because he was in the reserves and he did have to go for deployments. So he started making...
I think we have a picture of him in his military uniform.
Horrible... We put it up.
Oh, okay. I missed
horrible anti-gay comments about him, this Chief Davenport.
Yeah.
Tried to convince everybody he was gay and he should be harassed. And he was harassed relentlessly. If you read the litany of things they did to him. So he won $1.8 million.
You'd think word would have gotten out that this kind of behavior costs a lot of money.
In New Jersey, where they have the law on their side, especially. And they're still going after Chelsea Manning, who was...
I just want to, as long as we were in New Jersey, before we get to Chelsea. So I was invited to give the keynote speech at the Maplewood South Orange...
What was your message?
Pride Parade on last weekend. That there is joy to be found in activism.
Sure.
That it's not a grim thing that people are, should feel they have to do. That, in fact, you meet the greatest people, you have a great time, you feel great about what you're doing. And there were a lot of young people there. And they went around and introduced themselves just by name and said, I'm a freshman at the local high school, I'm a junior, This is who I am, I'm bisexual, I'm trans, I'm a lesbian, whatever. And it was just the most refreshing little local event. And I had a great time. Thank you to Maplewood South Orange. And it felt so much more real and important than the extravaganzas that we see in bigger cities.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Yeah. But it's not the way to do it for Chelsea Manning, who was pleading for release from prison. This is over the WikiLeaks case where she refuses to testify, and she says you've already charged him with Assange with 18 counts under the Espionage Act. So but they're saying no, we want more evidence from you.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep you in prison and fine you. until you break.
But meanwhile, all the Trump administration crooks should not honor the subpoenas that they've been issued.
Well, they're gonna have to deal with that.
Maybe.
All right. Should we talk about?
Sure.
Yeah. Dallas.
Yeah.
Another murder of a black trans woman. This is the 8th in this country this year. The 3rd
that we know of.
In Dallas alone. Shinal Lindsay, 26 years old. It was a violent homicide. The body was found at White Rock Lake. The police say they have no evidence linking these three, but
they're now looking into it since they've all happened so close together.
Certainly the mayor, the police chief, I mean, they're all over it. I mean, look. This stuff is going to keep happening if you keep marginalizing transgender people and forcing them into sex work, into drug selling. I'm not saying I object to
She was a home health care worker.
I know. I'm just saying. Yeah. But, yeah. All right.
So in Clayton, Georgia, a group called the Rural American Pride Committee, which is a group of LGBTQ plus people, were holding a meeting, and they booked rooms at the Best Value Inn in Clayton, Georgia.
And Nancy there thought, oh, they have pride in being rural. And fine. And then she found out what it was, and she said, we do not support or sponsor you in any way. Well, the owner of the place got wind of this and said, no. And then,
Nancy, you're fired.
You are fired. Yeah. And they got lots of offers of help and
other
dinners and
other places.
All kinds of places in the area.
That was nice.
So it has a happy ending.
Yeah.
Not so from the mayor of Carbon Hill, Alabama, Mark Chambers. He recommended killing gay people in a deleted Facebook post. We live in a society where homosexuals lecture us on morals, transvestites lecture us on human biology. The only way to change it would be to kill the problem out. There's no way to fix it, and he won't. He didn't back up on that anyway. And then there's Representative Mike Hill. Where was that? Oh, well, anyway. He also wanted to execute LGBT people. People are just openly talking about killing us. It is, after all, in their Bible.
And back to Dallas, Texas, 3 men have been arrested who lured online, brutalized, and robbed gay men.
Okay.
But at least they've arrested them.
New York City is opening up an office for the prevention of hate crimes, which are up 64% from last year. 60% of the increase, they say, is anti-Semitic crimes. They say they're going to use law enforcement deterrence, public education, community safety models, diversion programs.
They couldn't even stop people from burning a pride flag outside a gay bar in Harlem.
But they won't be able to burn these statues. The Mayor de Blasio and his wife, Shirlane McCray, they have this commission to get more statues for women and others who have been excluded over the years. And they announced that there are going to be statues. We have pictures of our activists. Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. Those were the pictures that were put up of them at this ceremony at the LGBT Community Center.
My question is always, why can't you use real pictures of the real people?
Well, we'll see what the statues are going to look like. They're going to be
but even for the
about a block away
event,
from the Stonewall.
For the announcement event, you can't use real pictures of real people?
They thought this was more fun.
No, it's not. I want to see the real people.
But I sat through this whole thing. I have to say, I came to this like, statues. How about doing something for transgender people? But people, I was very moved by it, and certainly transgender folks were very chuffed about this. And I thought that the mayor's wife, Shirlane McCray, who was a lesbian activist in her youth, was very articulate about the need for all this. So here's Shirlane McCray, the wife of Mayor de Blasio.
Mission right now, because history has tried to forget some of our heroes. But we're not going to let that happen, are we?
No.
Most people probably don't think very much about who gets to be a hero in our society. You know, we got Superman and Spider-Man and Santa Claus, and I don't know. Many people don't know what it's like to be harassed every day. Many don't know what it's like to be mocked just for being who they are, to be made to feel less than, to be rendered invisible in the media landscape, to have one's contributions and courage go unrecognized. But there are people in this room today who know exactly what that feels like. There are people in our city and in our country who know exactly what that feels like. Today's announcement is for all of us, but especially for them. Our history helps define our present and shape our future. But the histories written by white, straight, cisgender men rarely tell the full story. It is, just as the African proverb reminds us, until the lion learns to write, every story will glorify the hunter. The contributions of too many women, LGBTQ people, people of color, and people living on the margins of society have been obscured or erased entirely. But now, the lions are writing. They are writing and roaring loudly, because these stories must be told, heard, and celebrated. That's why last year we set out to fix a glaring gender imbalance in our city's public spaces with She Built NYC. So far, we've announced 5 new monuments honoring trailblazing women, 1 in each borough. And today, as we prepare to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising and the movement it sparked, we will add 2 new names to the list. Are you ready for them? Yes. They are Marsha P. Johnson. And Sylvia Rivera.
Marsha and Sylvia were often treated like crap, even within the community, certainly by the police. And I mean, as was pointed out by some of the speakers, Sylvia was banned from the community center. Yep. And Sylvia could be pretty obstreperous.
Absolutely.
I mean, no question.
Absolutely.
But they were great activists, and they were on the streets long before Stonewall. They practically lived on the streets. I mean, Sylvia was only 2 years older than I am and died of AIDS some years ago, but was on the street since she was 10 years old. Having to engage in sex work. So they led very rough lives, and they're being honored, and there was a lot of acknowledgement of that in this ceremony by the transgender speakers especially. And we heard from Angelica Ross, one of the big stars of Pose. So let's hear what she had to say.
Today is a win, a long overdue win, but indeed it's a win that we need to celebrate together. And as we celebrate today, I want to offer, as the Buddhist, a Buddhist perspective of this glorious statue of Marsha P. and Sylvia Rivera. Let this be a reminder, and more so a reflection. When you see these monuments, let it remind you of the unpaid and unrecognized labor that trans women put in every day to set us all free. Let the strength and the courage of Marsha and Sylvia remind us of our own strength and courage to stand up for what's right. Because there are countless Black and brown trans women right now today across America, like these transcestors, who with Star House have to sell themselves in their own time in order to fund their nonprofits and their advocacy work, because we're competing with our cis gay allies for funding, resulting in situations where gays and lesbians and gay and lesbian centered organizations are given resources to speak on our behalf and get half as much done as we do with half as much money and resources.
So after the ceremony, one of the activists who was on the stage was veteran activist Brendan Fay from Queens, and I asked him about, he said he had something wanted to say about his perspective on all of this. Brendan Fay.
So while I'm very moved to be here today, honoring and celebrating our sheroes, our transgender pioneers, Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, I'm aghast when I heard that the city was anticipating a budget of $750,000 If anything we learn from their stories is why did they have to live so much of their lives on the streets of this city? Because there was nowhere or few places they could call home. If anything, the best way of honoring their lives is to open up a shelter, a space, spend this money, expend more money, where our transgender brothers and sisters can finally have a home and not have to live on the streets of our city.
Thank you, Brendan.
And Sylvia and Marsha worked very hard to try to create spaces for street kids who needed that kind of help.
Absolutely. And there is some, but there's not enough.
No,
by any stretch of the imagination.
And I also want to mention that I feel a little sad that Stormy DeLarvery, who has actually the most believable story of having started the Stonewall Rebellion by punching a cop and yelling that everyone should join in, is not given more notice in all this. They were all heroes. They all fought for years, but I'd like to see a little more attention to her, too.
Okay. Well, Jared Polis, the out-gay governor of Colorado, is giving us more attention. He signed 2 bills. One, a ban on conversion therapy for minors, and created a system of hassle-free document changes for trans people.
And the governor of Maine, Janet Mills, says signed a bill for no conversion therapy for minors, too. I'm actually impressed by how that whole movement has advanced pretty quickly.
In more good news, in Alabama, the First Methodist Church, and we've heard about the problems in the Methodist Church, but they're going to air the gay wedding episode there of Arthur, the kids show that was blocked by public TV.
Yeah. And the Episcopal Diocese of Michigan has elected a lesbian bishop, Dr. Bonnie Perry.
On the other hand, in Tennessee, in Coffee County, DA Craig Northcott said that those convicted of domestic abuse and same-sex relationships should not face the same penalties, as they don't really have marriages. I don't recognize them, he said.
Amazing.
And last year he said non-Christians have no constitutional rights. I mean, this person is still in office?
He's the Attorney General, right?
He's a DA.
Oh, District Attorney, even better. In Iowa, the state has passed a law that's about to take effect that allows refusal of health care to trans people. The ACLU is now suing to block that from going into effect.
What the hell is going on in Iowa, folks? I mean, I know they've obviously redistricted it and gerrymandered it, but it's not that not that conservative a state.
Yes, it is. It always has been. And the Iowa caucuses have always, on the Republican side, elected very conservative
people. They have also
people.
voted Democrat in a number of presidential elections in the last 2 decades.
I believe you, but they have a very conservative streak in Iowa.
All right. The Human Rights Campaign came out for the D.C. legislation decriminalizing sex work. Consensual sex work, of course.
All right.
And YouTube is going to remove hate videos. Any alleging that a group is superior in order to justify discrimination, segregation, or exclusion.
They've just refused to remove videos
by Steve Crowder.
Yeah, who is a right-wing crazy.
He's got 4 million subscribers.
Yes, and he trolls this gay guy by calling him all sorts of names continually every day.
Carlos Maza.
Carlos has complained, and YouTube has refused to remove.
In Minneapolis, there's a new gay bar that's going to be opening called Cheers. We don't want you to go there except for a demonstration. The owner of it has been making deeply anti-Semitic posts on social media against really, really horrible stuff against Jews. And there's going to be a rally on June 21st outside the site of the bar.
All right, a couple of small, strange, good news stories. In Kansas, a local weatherman who is gay and who is also a tornado chaser decided to propose to his boyfriend in front of a tornado outside. Here's the picture. There's the proposal. There's the tornado bearing down on them. Run and marry me. That is quite a picture. Well, good for you. And then in D.C., The local NBC station has an anchor named Megan Fitzgerald, and she chose this Pride Month to not only come out on the air, but to announce that she is engaged to her girlfriend,
Kelly Heath.
Who's a former basketball player and medical device saleswoman. And we're going to put this in our show note because we're not sure we have the right to use this on air, but the hilarity surrounding the announcement was pretty wild.
You have to stay with it to the end. And Megan says she hopes she'll inspire the boys and girls and men and women who are still struggling.
And I want to know if our State Attorney General, Letitia James, came out in a party article in the New York Times. Some Hamptons party, and she says, and she was asked by the Times, and who was her posse for this beach weekend? And she said, I've got a girl posse, I've got a gay posse, I've got a black posse, all in my body.
Oh.
Did you just come out, Tish? I mean, we've been outing you on this show for years.
We don't out people,
really.
We just report.
The truth, the news. And the New York Times failed to report the news about their the woman who was their sports editor for a while, the only time they've had a woman leading the sports department, Leanne Schreiber, who just died of lung cancer. And she, no immediate survivors, no mention of her being a lesbian. She was at my house for the Ellen coming out party when I didn't know she was there. And when she was leaving, she introduced herself, and I said, oh my God, Leanne Schreiber was at my house?
She may have been at the overflow from that party that was at my house next door.
No, she was at my house.
No, I mean before she met you. By the way, problem with corporations, Netflix touts its gay programming, and they do a lot. And they're maybe pulling out of Georgia because of the anti-abortion law, but its CEO, Reed Hastings, gives to scores of Republicans in Missouri who voted for the extreme anti-abortion ban, and to Governor Mike Parson, who signed it.
This is why corporate sponsorship of these parades is problematic, because they're actually pinkwashing themselves by being in these parades, because a lot of the stuff they do not in the parades is not so estimable.
And this guy is not doing it because he's opposed to abortion. He does it because he supports charter schools, which is a big right-wing cause.
Well, and many of them do it just so they'll get legislation that's favorable to their business interests. But they'll support anyone to get that.
Okay.
But what is it? Tales of the City, the next new edition, is starting on Netflix now.
There is so much gay programming on.
We'll get to that.
Talk about
that.
Get
your pen out.
Yeah, okay. International news?
Yep.
In Canada, Prime Minister Trudeau has a policy mandating that groups that apply for youth employment grants for the summer, employment things, support abortion rights, reproductive rights, and also have to support LGBT rights. He also forbids anti-abortion candidates from running from his Liberal Party for office.
Nice. Will that ever happen here? Who knows?
Well,
they're having a big fight in the Democratic Party about whether to support certain Democratic members of Congress who have some anti-abortion views.
Well, we don't have a lot of time, but I worry about what the Democrats are doing to insurgent candidates who are more progressive and trying to cut them off.
Yes.
People like AOC, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they're really clamping down on these candidacies who are going to make your party better.
Yes.
Our party, my party.
They're saying that they will not allow their contracting agencies who do election support to support insurgent candidates, or they'll stop using them. It's terrible. We've told you a lot in the last few weeks about Taiwan legalizing same-sex marriage, but one part of that is that if you are Taiwanese and you want to marry someone who is not Taiwanese, your marriage can only be legal if the person you marry comes from a country where same-sex marriage is legal. Well, where it is not legal is in mainland China. But in fact, what they are now doing, because so many Taiwanese people have relationships with people from mainland China, is they're going to make an exception. They're going to have a partnership scheme that allows Taiwanese to have a legal partnership with people from mainland China, and this is seen as a step towards fully legalizing
And
that.
Hong Kong, a court there declared the ban on gay male sex unconstitutional.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. And also amazing, a court in Switzerland Switzerland has told Castor Semenya,
Yes.
that she does not have to abide by the new rule about testosterone diminution treatment to compete in middle distance races. So while all of that is under appeal, she can compete as a human being.
And Japan seems to, maybe they're inspired by Taiwan, because a marriage equality bill was introduced there. Just introduced.
In Italy, Tromello, Italy, they have elected their first trans mayor.
Gianmarco Negri, 40 years old. This is a town of 3,700 people in Pavia. Did I say that right? South of Milan there. He's been a criminal lawyer for 20 years. He's left-leaning, and he's appeared on a TV show called Love Me Gender, a dating show for trans people.
Interesting.
We don't have one here, do we?
No.
We have other things.
Well, the DC anchor and her girlfriend met on Tinder. The traditional way, as they say.
Well, how did Buttigieg meet? What was the name of that one called?
That Hinge?
Hinge.
Yes.
Hinge.
In the Philippines, President Duterte was what was he doing? Sort of teasing a political opponent?
He said he used to be gay, but he was able to cure himself. He said it is a disease that needs curing. He also said a gay person he knows told him that his arch rival is gay based on how he moves. And he says when he met his wife, he became a man again.
It all seems entirely
he's
too
a
crazy.
horror show.
He is. Elton John is mad at Russia, in spite of defending them all that time when they started their no promo homo law. And he'd go there and perform.
This is about his film,
yes,
Rocket
exactly.
Man, and they cut the gay scenes.
They cut the gay.
What's left?
Gay. No, the point is in these films, even in Bohemian Rhapsody, it's just a couple of minutes of sex or affection.
It's supposed to be more in Rocket Man than there is in Bohemian Rhapsody.
It's 5 minutes instead of 2 minutes.
All right. Follow up on all that royal stuff in the United Kingdom. Prince Harry and Meghan, the Sussexes, are the first royals to mark Pride Month with an Instagram post. We stand with you and support you because it's very simple. Love is love. And they highlighted about 20 LGBT groups fighting for justice. This is very unroyal. So she doesn't seem very nasty to me.
Not at all.
Not at all.
No.
I don't know what Trump was thinking.
Well, given what he does, I'm sure he has many reasons not to like her.
Did we talk about the Ethiopian church groups?
No.
Yeah, they're angry that a gay tour company, Toto Tours, is including their religious sites in their tours, and the Orthodox Church wants them banned. Now, this group has been around for 20 years and taking tours, but now this is a country that bans, locks you up for 15 years for homosexuality. They also have traveled to Uganda and Tanzania.
Well,
Tanzania. I corrected myself.
Thank you. I was going to say, first the Amazing Race goes to Uganda, and now the gay tour group goes to
And there's a gay activist in Brunei who has not been able to leave the country for 2 years because they caught him with some bottles of wine in his luggage, and for this he is like under house arrest basically.
Sharia law.
And by the way, they're reminding us, even though they didn't drop the death penalty, but they said they're not going to do it. Lesbians still face 40 lashes in Brunei for doing what they do. All right.
All right, AIDS news and medical news. I was happy to see that the University of California at San Francisco has decided not to affiliate with the Catholic health system that they were considering.
Please.
Because specifically of the Catholic hospital rules about reproductive freedom, trans health care. And UCSF said, nope, we can't do it. But they were considering it for a long time, and it was only because there were a lot of protests and petitions that said, don't you dare.
We have no Catholic hospitals left in New York City. We used to have a ton. In California, thanks to Lambda Legal Defense, a court ruled for an HIV-positive man who was denied a haircut at an LA barbershop. So not only did they win this case, but they've started a nationwide program called Cut the Stigma for people, especially for African-American barbershops, where they want to do some education. It needs to be done everywhere.
Look, I'm thrilled that he pursued this. He could easily have just decided this was not a big deal.
His name was Nico Brighter Ramos.
And he got $75,000 plus costs and fees. This haircut denial was a year and a half ago in October of 2017. And thank you for pursuing that, Nico.
Gilead says its new HIV/AIDS drug, TAF, is brand new. But Peter Staley says TAF is almost as old as TDF, which is the main drug in Truvada.
This is Descovy versus Truvada. Gilead's patent on Truvada is going to run out in the near future. And so now they're touting this other drug. But you know, this is all scheduling by the drug companies to get the most profits.
Now, while you were all watching scandals and royal coverage and all that stuff, the Republicans in the U.S. Senate voted to cut Medicare and Medicaid in half. Now, I hope in reconciliation with the House Democrats that will come out, but that's what they want to do to you folks. They want to cut Medicaid and Medicare in half.
We're not happy about this.
No.
And yes, circuses to distract us from this.
Right.
All right, entertainment news. Have you got a pen and a piece of paper? Because we're going to tell you some things coming up.
I do. I have pen and paper.
All right. On this Friday, for those of you who've seen it before this, there is a Chelsea Manning documentary on Showtime. It'll be available after that, I'm sure, and on demand. XY Chelsea.
There's so much stuff on public television. I saw the list in WNET in New York. That you should go to their websites of your local public television station. They're doing a lot of Pride Month programming.
Big Little Lies returns on HBO on Sunday. I'm actually looking forward to that. But Pose returns to FX on June 11th, and also on June 11th on PBS, Stonewall Uprising.
Which is the great documentary about that, based on David Carter's book.
Yep.
I also was brought to my attention by a longtime viewer, Andrew Taines, Light in the Water. It's a documentary about LGBT Hollywood, the Hollywood gay swim team. It's been making the rounds at the film festivals, and we're gonna show you the trailer now. I think we have that.
Yes, we do.
And I remember going to the blocks and the guys next to us saying, "That's the fag team." And I turned to the relay and I said, "We are going to crush them." And we did.
We started in response to a certain amount of homophobia and the empowerment that comes from athletics, and especially gay men not being seen as athletes back in 1982.
And the whole idea back then is if you were gay, you were very feminine, you didn't like to do sports. So this changed the norm. I mean, no one could imagine that there were athletes that were gay.
By going to these straight swim meets as a known gay team and out gay team and winning, it was empowering. We were discovering ourselves and what our power was.
We became a family.
The team was created in '82, AIDS surfaced in '82.
At one point in time, there was a funeral every week.
They thought if you were gay, you probably had AIDS, and if you had AIDS, you were going to infect everybody. We couldn't even get a swimming pool. People were afraid that if you swam in the pool, that you could get it. When they found out it was a gay team, they started breaking into our cars. At the gay games in New York, they put so much chlorine in the water that it was actually painful.
Swimming helped because in a way it was a distraction. It was, you knew you could swim. If you could swim, you could live. Or at least you were alive for that moment.
Engaged. We're engaged. I proposed. He said yes.
There's always a group from every generation that sticks. The team is solid that way, and the team serves a purpose for different reasons for different people. Yeah, swimming was my lifesaver.
So I'm looking forward to watching this because I can watch it online, Logo online. If you subscribe to any one of, I guess, the big cable systems, then you just click in there and you can watch Logo online, and I'm going to watch the film there.
Yeah.
It's also at film festivals.
Yeah. And yeah, a lot of films being released this month are special screenings. We're everywhere.
Before Stonewall is being revived in New York, John Scagliotti's film. And our old friend Dean Lance, the artist, is having an exhibit at Howl at 6 East 1st Street from June 5 to 15. It's called Mourn the Dead, Fight for the Living. I'm going to be going down there for that. And I'll put that in our email along with a lot of these other things. If you subscribe to our email, go to gayusatv.org. Click on you want to subscribe. They'll send you an email. You say, yeah, I really want to subscribe. I can find out what's going on every week. And I can get all these web extras. Well, that's what we send out.
Like the DC anchor.
Yes.
But Mourn for the Dead, Fight for the Living is an old ACT UP slogan.
Yeah.
And again, it evokes what we need to do in these times and is completely lost in the corporate pride parades.
Right.
So.
Well, you know, the attitude a lot of them take is, oh, come on, we need a party, we need a celebration once a year. You know, you're too, we don't want this activist stuff. Remember in the movie Pride, where this was in the early 80s, where the activists who were helping the coal miners were told, oh, no, you're in the back. You know, we want fun up front. We have to, because we are hurting with AIDS and everything, and we want to celebrate. And then all those coal miners showed up, and they put everybody in the front.
Well, and it's not like we're not going to be celebrating in the Queer Liberation March.
No,
I get emails every day from the Radical Fairies who are creating incredible art projects to carry in this march. And in fact, the Howl Arts Center, where Dean is having his exhibit, is sending a whole contingent along with the band and paper mache things.
Who's speaking at the rally? Do you know?
I know some of them. We've booked about a dozen, and we have more to go. But it's going to be brief. It's going to be a very tight rally for 2 or 3 hours. That's it. Well, the whole thing will be done by 4 p.m. Stacey Ann Chin, Masha Gessen, Justin Vivian Bond, Taylor Mack.
Ann runs a tight ship.
Our old colleague Pamela Sneed will be performing.
The poet.
And members of the old Gay Liberation Front. They've been made grand marshals of the Heritage of Pride Parade, but half of them are jumping ship and coming over to us because we embody their values.
And we hope to see you there.
Yeah. So we'll be there on June 30th in Sheridan Square and then marching up 6th Avenue.
In the morning.
Yes.
Stay up all night.
Or
in fact, go back to the Stonewall and riot again.
Go to Bryant Park at 11 and we'll pick you up there. But we will be back here on Gay USA next week and we will see you then. Thank you.